All right, so this is a presentation that I'll give to coaches, to trainers, to athletes, and even regular people who I work with and who come to running clinics that I do. And the idea here is I can give you a very clear idea of exactly what we're trying to accomplish and why I'm training you with these very unique exercises that you won't find anywhere else. So it's a new methodology, and my number one objective is every step stronger for as many people as possible. And the way that that comes about is systemic change and generational change. So the key here is you got to make the very best athletes in the world better, and by making them better biomechanically so that their performance is enhanced, now you can educate everyone as to more optimal biomechanics for movement. And you teach the next generation when they're young how to do this, and all of a sudden you've got a transformation. Okay? Right. So that's what this presentation is. Every step stronger for as many people as possible. Now what we're going to be going over is WeckMethod's head over foot technique and training. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of the training. This is going to really outline the technique and give you an idea and the rationale for why we train the way that we do. And I'll explain it. Okay? So we're starting with the premise that locomotion is the fundamental functional movement. So things like breathing are essential to survival, and locomotion is most essential to survival if you look back in an evolutionary sense. Can't move, you're dead. And the way that we move is bipedal locomotion. Upright, walking on 2 feet, running on 2 feet. And so this sets the stage for enhanced movement capacity to locomote, but it also is the foundation for throwing, for jumping, for hitting, for punching, for all athletic movement stems from locomotion. So if we can make locomotion biomechanically more efficient and powerful, then we have the genesis or the root to making everything better. So this doesn't just apply to runners, even though we're teaching you to run. Okay? All right. Now here's the issue, and it's also the opportunity, is that today there's a fundamental misunderstanding by most experts about optimal biomechanics of running. Now, not all experts agree, so there are differing opinions, and there's some experts who have a closer understanding to what is biomechanically optimal. One of the storied and very, very well-respected coaches named Dan Paff is a guy who I really like the way that he thinks, because he's more onto this than most. But there are leading world experts who are completely wrong at the fundamental level. Here is the overwhelming consensus of opinion for today's experts, and it's exemplified by this quote right here. The xiphoid process and symphysis pubis, I'll explain what those are in just a minute, must not deviate laterally because of lateral bending in the frontal plane. So lateral bending in the frontal plane is simply side bending, and they're saying that what we want is this. So this circle here is on the xiphoid process, and this is the pubis symphysis. And what they're saying is you can't deviate that relationship, so it has to be straight up and down. And that leads to this very centered core, okay? And the experts who have this opinion are incredibly knowledgeable and intelligent on many aspects of running, but they're building on a false foundation, and if you're on a false foundation, then there's nothing you can do to make up for that discrepancy. So we need to correct this and get it out there in the industry so that we have a universal consensus about what it is that we actually want to do. Because maintaining this relationship with the body to run fast, this is fundamentally wrong. Okay? So I'm going to demonstrate this, how it works, etc. But this is in no means a way to take pot shots or call people out. I just want to help everybody with a better understanding. So I acknowledge that, these experts who have this opinion, they know a ton of things and they're excellent at what they do. It's just that they're building on a faulty foundation. So training them to run faster and most efficiently is about to undergo this massive change, okay? Because results rule, and it's the clock and it's the measuring tape that determine who is right. So opinions don't matter, mine or anybody else's. It's the result that's going to dictate what we have to do to be most efficient and powerful. Side bending, which is what they say is wrong, is the key to rotational power. Side bending. And it's side bending that enables us to harness what we call the spinal engine. And I'm going to get into exactly what that is. But it is side bending, frontal plane flexion, that's the key to this, how we're going to move with greater power, better tensional balance through the body, and better rotational power. To do this, we have to understand the difference between the bracing core and the coiling core, okay? So the bracing core is what the expert opinion is about the position that you want to be in for running. But really what this is a bracing core, and it really only has application for the weight room. When you're trying to pick up something really heavy, that's what you need to do, all right? So, I mean, if you're out and about in the world and you need to really pick something up heavy, then you need a bracing core. That's what protects the spine. That's what helps you harness the power through the hips and the back. Everything best is when you're able to brace the core, and it keeps the spine safe. But when you're talking about athletics and you're talking about movement, it's 1 foot at a time, right? So there's always that rotational component, and this is what has application to everything else. For athletic movement, this is what it's about. It's using the coiling core, and that lets us harness what we call the spinal engine. Now, I'm going to explain to you what the spinal engine is all about. The term was coined by a PhD scientist named Serge Grakovetsky, and basically what he said was that because of the curvature of the spine, side bending creates what we call axial rotation. So it creates this counter rotation between the hips and the shoulders. So the spine, when bent to the side, it mechanically will counter-rotate. So in a sense, it doesn't cost energy. It's just that's the way that it's built. That's what it's going to do because of the anatomy. So in this spine here, it's side bent to the left. That means that left shoulder is coming down and back, and it's rotating this direction. And then the same side hip is coming up and forward and rotating in this position. So we have this counter rotation here that originates from that frontal plane flexion, from the side bending. And this goes all the way back to the history of evolution. The very first animal forms on life, they wiggled side to side, and that's how they got from here to there. To eat and avoid being eaten, it was a wiggling side bend that led to a segmented spine, etc. And evolution, the way it works, is every next step is built on the previous step. So you're not throwing away what happened before. And if you look at a shark is Piscean, that means fish, and it wiggles side to side. A dolphin is a mammalian strategy, so they're also incorporating the flexion extension, and that's why a dolphin can outmaneuver a shark 6 ways to Sunday. He can jump so much higher out of the water. The shark can't catch a dolphin. And the dolphin can just flank a shark and hit him with his nose and the gills, and basically a dolphin can beat a shark. So this is absolutely critical to understand that we want this for application to running, and we don't want this for application to running. They are both critically important to have great strength and control over, but this is what we need, okay? So spinal engine is that which drives locomotion, and you don't need your legs to walk. And Grakovetsky created this footage of a man without legs who is walking upright, where you can clearly see it's the side bending. Look at the shoulder, how it comes down and back as the hip comes up and forward. And when you cover the bottom of the screen here, you can't tell if he has legs or not. He could just be walking in thick mud right there. When you bring it back to here, he's just lifting his legs out of the mud, right? You can't tell he doesn't have legs because he's walking just like we do in that sense. And you can clearly see that down and back, it's that underhand circle here that creates the overhand circle there. And it's the side bending that does that. That's what's critical. And here we're going to see it from the back view in just a second. You can clearly see that side bending, that relationship, ipsilateral relationship of shoulder back, down and back, and hip up and forward. So when we are training with this head over foot technique, so when we're executing the technique and when we're training it, our mantra is shoulder down and back, same side hip up and forward. So we're always trying to cultivate that. And we have certain axes of rotation that are going to stay in the same spot, and I'll get to some of that later, but the key is the spinal engine and how we do that. And head over foot is the alignment that gives us the optimal amount of side bending. So we're never bending beyond the base, but we're bending to the head goes over the foot. The head over the foot represents the fundamental balance through the body. Can't stand on one foot with a neutral spine without your head aligned over your foot. And anybody watching this presentation, you can stand up right now, feet, shoulders width apart, head in the middle. Don't move your head. Don't do anything with your spine. Keep it exactly where it is, and then lift one leg. Can't stand, right? So the only way to do it is to be over the foot with the head, and then the only way to get over the other foot before it lands, so at the moment of maximum impact, you're able to load the ground with the maximum force, maximum amount of balance, least amount of compensation, is to side bend and rotate to get the head over the next foot. And then it powers up, uncoiling, and that adds to the power of the extension and the flexion with the coiling to get through neutral and then over to the other side. All right, so this is absolutely critical, and this is what we're going to use in function. Now, it's not a flaw, it's the key to speed, and I want to play for you this clip of analysis by Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson is one of the greatest sprinters of all time, and he's extremely knowledgeable. This is in no way a knock against Michael Johnson. This is just to correct a misunderstanding so that all of his knowledge is now on a stronger foundation. So you're going to listen to this, and then I'm going to break it down, okay? Here we go.
But it's a real issue for him with all of that energy going side to side, where if you take a look at the comparison over here with Justin Gatlin on the left side of your screen, very solid lateral stability, shoulders straight, and all of that energy then is going into the track and putting him in the right direction and allowing him to take the power that he has, put that into the track with every step. Whereas with Bolt, he's collapsing on each side, swaying back and forth, so a lot of that energy then is actually spilling out, as we say, and therefore it's not going into the performance, and he's not able to get that out of his body.
Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to break that down now. So basically, as we look at the movement here, you can clearly see that Justin Gatlin is side bending. At the start of the race, the stride is widest, and that's when you have to side bend the most, at the start. And you can clearly see that he's side bending. You can see the clear lateral movement of the head. You can see, even here in the freeze frame, you can see his right shoulder is clearly lower than his left shoulder. So if you look at his head, it's moving side to side. He's landing head over foot, and he is not straight, and his core is not braced. Okay, so we got to clarify that. Now, Usain Bolt, he does it to a greater extent. Okay, Justin Gatlin happens to also have a narrower stride, and Bolt's stride is a little bit wider, and they're both landing with head over foot, and they are both side bending. Okay, that is key to understand in this. And I'm going to show you Michael Johnson himself, right? This is Michael Johnson, again, one of the best sprinters ever, unbelievable athlete and very smart. Look at how much side bending he has, okay? Keep in mind that he says side bending's bad. Now watch this. At the end of this relay race, look at the amount of head side to side, okay? See the way his head goes side to side? He's landing head over foot. Clearly one shoulder goes lower than the other shoulder, and that is how Michael Johnson actually did it, okay? And the problem that we have is that the coaching is teaching to brace the core and keep it centered and keep the shoulders level. And there's all sorts of drills to help you do that. So the coaching is actually working against what you want to do, and Michael Johnson is actually doing what he, in his mind, doesn't want to do. And the reason he's doing it is because it's faster, and he's fast. All right, so it's an efficiency game, and you can't be your fastest without efficiency. All right, so when he says here,
Usain Bolt doesn't run with technique. He doesn't care about technique. You look at him rocking back and forth, the shoulders all over the place because he can afford to do that.
Okay, that's not accurate. All right, so I'm proving the point that it makes it very clear that we want to do something very different than what the conventional wisdom states. Now here is Chris Johnson. He is a football guy running a 40-yard dash in the combine, and these guys are arguably faster than Usain Bolt and Justin Gatlin for the first 20 yards, 40 yards, right? They don't sustain the speed, but these guys are some of the fastest people in the world. And you can see 2 green lines that I've drawn. He's on his left foot, and his head is directly aligned over that left foot. The green dot is the center, okay? And this is a very important concept, and this goes back to that central axis point that I was talking about. So here is his left foot, here is his right foot. You can see the lateral movement of the head. You see the shoulders dip low and high, right? But look at the center. Center is going straight. So we want the center of mass in a straight race to go straight. We don't want to zigzag. But there's no straight lines in the human body, so we have to do this rotation. And rotation without side bending is both weak and dangerous for the spine. Anybody listening to this, just go through a throwing motion right now and do not side bend. Do not allow yourself to side bend. Go through a hitting motion. Do not side bend. You will feel so awkward, and it will feel so weak, and it will actually be dangerous on your spine if you tried to put power on it. Side bending is the key. You need the combination of side bending with rotation to be powerful. So here it is, that ghost image where you can see the differential, but the center is in the center. Okay, and that's very key to understand. When we look at it, breaking down in movement, in slow motion, you see how he gets there. When he lands with maximum force, he's head over foot. He's head over foot. At that moment of impact, he's head over foot, and he's coiled to use all of that rotational power to power the extension and the flexion. And that makes him fast. That's at the fundamental level. So keeping the shoulders is actually a flaw, and it's actually slow. And here's exactly what it looks like. This is, according to conventional wisdom, perfect form. See his head not moving? See his shoulders are level? See that? Now, this is Rich Eisen from the NFL Network. Every year he runs the 40 in his suit. He's got the track spikes. He's running backward, and he's having no problem beating him right here. This is called sundial slow, okay? And his technique is actually awful, even though he's doing what the overwhelming consensus is that you should do, okay? So if you're not landing with the head over the foot, the body is fundamentally not balanced, and you are losing power. So when we look at this image right, whoops, sorry about that. When we look at this image right here, you can see the misalignment. If he were standing still here, he would tip over immediately to the side where his head is, because he's relatively neutral, head is not over the foot. Okay, so that step cannot impart maximum force to and from the ground to be most productive. There is compensation inherent in that alignment, and that is compromising his ability to perform as best as he can. And I hope this is making sense, because my coach used to say that the eye in the sky does not lie. And the reason I know what I know is because I do tons of video analysis. It's the only way to really know it. So again, I showed you Michael Johnson, I showed you his technique, and you see the head go side, 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 side. He's landing head over foot, because that's the way you got to do it. Now, let's go back to Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, head over foot. He does it exceptionally well, and he coils big time. So he's using all of that length and all of that strength to power the extension and the flexion with a perfect transmission of force through that foot and then through that foot. And his right foot is his power stroke, and that helps him run the curve as well, because in track you always run left. But his right foot, you can see the amount of coil. That's his power stroke. Most people power stroke on the left, but he does it on the right, and there's his left. Boom, boom. That's his power. Now, if we go through the list, right? Andre DeGrasse, he's a big up-and-comer. Some say that, he could start to approach the Bolt-type times. He is head over foot every step. And some people do it better or worse than others. And all it means, if you're not doing it as well as you can, then you're not running your optimal speed. Bolt could not do it and he'd beat me every single time, right? Just because he's so much more gifted. But in order for him to improve his performance relative to himself, you got to be head over foot, okay? Gatlin is head over foot. Gatlin sometimes misses a little bit. Bolt really doesn't miss. Bolt does it. DeGrasse really doesn't miss. Now this guy, he misses, so he gets it close, but he's not spot on right here. So perhaps it's been coached out of him. We don't know. And this can add up to easily a tenth of a second or perhaps more if you are not doing it. So there are huge performance gains to be had for improving this. And then training. What head over foot technique does is it reveals a whole new way to train, because now you're no longer just training that bracing core, you're training the coiling core. And you're integrating with the balance, the strength, and the coordination of that coil on coil to the coil on coil to that extension and the flexion. All right, and some people do it naturally. This is my son, and he's athletic, and he does it naturally. Nobody had to teach him. He feels it. It's fast. That's what he does, okay? He's racing against a friend in the park who's not doing it naturally. They're both running in a straight line. Boom, boom, but he wins by 10 yards in a relatively short race because this is not power to the ground. It's out of bounds. You can even see the left arm trying to compensate for that imbalance. Now what we're going to talk about is stride width. Okay, because depending upon how wide your stride is will depend on, that's the lateral motion in the head is going to be contingent upon that stride width. So Allison Felix is actually running the center line, and her left foot is actually crossing the center line slightly, so you don't see that lateral movement in her head. But she's landing head over foot every stroke, and she still is low shoulder, low shoulder. You see that spinal engine being coiled, landing with balance. Now watch what happens at the end of the race. When you're digging it out and trying to accelerate, the stride widens and the degree of side bending increases to be commensurate with that. You see how her head moves more side to side. The hair has bigger amplitude of how it's going side to side. So this stride width concept is very important. Now, head over foot's how we're going to run, but acceleration, the head is aligned with the foot because the head is forward of the foot to accelerate. So Asafa Powell, massive side bend, and he's aligning that head with the foot. And again, people do this better and worse. And relative to yourself, you want to be able to do it. Tyson Gay does it big time. And Tyson Gay will do this down the whole length, the entire 100 meters. You're going to see that right there from Tyson Gay. He does it big time. And he happens to be the second fastest man in human history behind Bolt. And he's tied for second, but he's second fastest. Carl Lewis. Carl Lewis actually didn't do it optimally, okay? And his coach was Tom Tellez, who, again, best coaches in the world, knows a ton of stuff. But Tom Tellez was very, sort of, okay, we want to keep the body in this way. And so perhaps it was somewhat coached out of Carl, but you can still see how much lateral movement is there, even though he's been instructed not to do it. Florence Griffith Joyner, one of the fastest woman in history, FloJo. She ran a 10.4.900, and they're not even approaching that time now. That may be one of the longest standing world records in the history of track and field at the end of the day. That record may outlast Bolt's record. Okay, it's that extreme. And you see the head over foot. You see how there's her center of her body, but you see how her head is over her foot? So the xiphoid process is not over the pubis symphysis. Now here's what's really interesting. Watch the woman next to, right here, next to FloJo, and I've isolated it out. But she misses, boom, she missed. And now that caused an imbalance, and the whole stride was out. She almost fell into FloJo's lane, and now it was about recovering as opposed to productive. Every step's contingent upon the last step, right? Boom, missed. Next step, got to make up for it, right? Got to get back, right? Otherwise, it's not max power. And you can clearly see that's the reality. Now, back to these NFL Combine guys. Massive side bending. These guys just boom, boom. They use all of that power through their core, the coiling core, That's the athletic core to power themselves. Look at the degree of side bending, right? And it's 4-3-40, 4-4-40, 4-2-40. You're side bending big time. I mean, look at the side bend here. Because to accelerate, that's where you need to do it even more than at top speed. The stride is wider. The stride is wider in the beginning. His stride's not quite as wide. He's not doing it quite as much as the last guy. But the point is you have a huge amount of that coiling side bending. Works in distance running too. So this is not just about sprinters. Distance runners do it. And the more efficiently they do it, the better they're going to run the marathon. Every single step adds up. So you can clearly see, look at the shoulders, look at the lateral movement of the head. He's landing head over foot, head over foot. So this is not a rule, it's a law. And it's the law of physics, it's the law of gravity, it's the law of biomechanical efficiency given physics and gravity. Gravities are constant, and it's never going to change, and it's always going to tell the truth. And if you're not biomechanically aligned, you're not most efficient. So Steve Prefontaine, very famous runner, very gutsy runner, died young, but you see head over foot, right? And he has a narrow stride width, so he doesn't have a lot of lateral movement, but you can clearly see the shoulder action, and you can clearly see that it's head over foot. Look at this right here. Seems like the taller people tend to do it a little bit more, but you can see every single one of these guys, boom, 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 and it's a cultural phenomenon. Human beings learn from those others around them, and we basically copy. Think of your tongue. Think of the language that you speak. It's just the muscle memory that you copied by osmosis. You didn't even have to think about it. You copied those around you. And so when you have an entire culture of people who are moving this way, these are Kenyans out for a run, right? And every single one of them is landing head over foot. Now, if I'm a baby and I'm growing up in this environment, well, guess how I'm going to move, right? I'm going to be slotted into that kind of movement. Now, in America, most people don't do this. So you're sort of fated to not do it unless you're athletic and you can feel it. So in addition to the metabolic advantages and what have you for the Kenyans, it's a biomechanical advantage they have from a cultural aspect. This is Haile Gebrselassie, one of the best distance runners of all time, relatively narrow stride, but you can clearly see it's head over foot on each step. And with his countrymen, nearly stride for stride here, head over foot, head over foot. So like I said before, this is not it's not the rule, it's not my rules, it's the law. And once you understand this, now you can tailor the training. So this head over foot training is specifically targeted to the head over foot technique, and they both reinforce each other, but it reveals an entirely new way to train, a new concept. So the stuff that I've created, WeckMethod, is basically head over foot is a huge part of our training, and that's what leads to this, the new. Okay, it's the new truth. And you don't have any, listen, it provides an advantage, and an advantage is only an advantage until it becomes a necessity. In the competitive world that we live in, an advantage becomes a necessity. So that's why we have a chance at this systemic change where we can truly affect every step stronger for everyone. And that's why I'm not trying to denigrate anybody. I'm not trying to put people down. All I want to do is I want to elevate the art and science of movement training, and that's how we create the generational change, and the generational change is the key. Because right now in America, people are getting less healthy and less motivated. And the more efficient we can get them moving from the start, the better off everyone's going to be. So here is a friend from Facebook, and he's very, very athletic, very conditioned, strong. But as soon as I saw this picture of him, I sent him this image, and I said, listen, you have to fix that. Because if you don't fix that, then you're never going to top out and be your max. And it doesn't take much, but every millimeter matters, okay, when it comes to efficiency. So, and you're putting extra stress on the body, too. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Massive side bend, coiling. Look at that. That's a 4-3-40 right there, okay? That's massive. Distance, head over foot. Distance, head over foot. Distance, head over foot, right? And here's where I want to get to sort of another application, which is to walking, okay? This applies to walking too, because it's still locomotion. And you still got to use the spinal engine. We saw the guy without legs. He was walking, not running. And it's the spinal engine. So unless you are landing each step when you walk with your head over foot, there are biomechanical inefficiencies in that. That leads to compensation. That leads to repetitive stress. And you end up paying a price. And that price is basically paid in pennies. So you don't notice the money coming out of the account, but you take 5,000 steps every day. Add up the days, the weeks, the months, the years, and is it any wonder that 80% of people have back pain in America, right? During your life, you're going to have severe back pain if you're 8 out of 10 people. And the way that you walk has a huge impact on that. LeBron James, get to the picture here. LeBron James, every step, boom. The best athletes in the world, they walk this way. Some call it the swag, right? You know, it's like, oh, that guy, boom, head over foot, head over foot. Now, look at him. He's just walking out on the street. He's walking out on the street. He's walking out on the street. Every single step that this man takes, he is biomechanically balanced. It's efficient. He doesn't want to waste energy. This guy goes from 0 to 100. Nothing's ever wasted. That's why he's so great. Deion Sanders did it. Everybody who's great does it. And the better you do it, the better you are relative to yourself. So with WeckMethod, we're teaching you the techniques and the training to run your fastest. And the idea of running your fastest, it gives you better agility, gives you better multi-direction, gives you better throwing, hitting, punching, jumping, etc. So it's a universal approach to enhancing movement. And it's as simple as head over foot. Head over foot is the best cue to execute this technique. Everything else starts to fall into line. You harness the spinal engine when you go head over foot. You train it, it reinforces the technique reinforces the training. Back to our friend Usain Bolt, the fastest man we know about in the history of humanity. Head over foot, exemplified. He does not have bad technique. He is not collapsing. This is actually extremely efficient running, and that picture speaks 1,000 words, right? And even those who say that he shouldn't be doing it, if you're a great athlete, you're doing it. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been informative. The reason I show this to coaches, to trainers, to athletes is to motivate them. Okay, I show this, and now you're interested in what I'm teaching you. You're going to pay very close attention to the details, and you're going to retain much more information than if I just took an athlete out on the floor and I said, okay, I want you to do this, and I didn't give him the sort of the context for it. He's not even going to want to do it. I mean, what the hell are you making me do? But you watch this, and that's why I recorded this. This is what I do live to, say, okay, look, here's what we want to do. Here's why we're doing it. I'm giving you all the reasons. Ask me questions, whatever you need to do. We need to have both feet in the barrel, getting better at biomechanical efficiency, and head over foot technique and training is the absolute foundation for enhancing locomotion. And that's what makes this mission possible. Every step stronger, systemic change with universal acceptance. We have gotten to a point where all the little fiefdoms, kingdoms of training, we can all get over it. We can share information, and we can, I'm right, you're wrong, No, that's not what this is about. What this is about what is the best. The clock is the judge. Let's all do it, and let's compete on a level playing field. And now you take all of your expertise that you have, which is vast and in depth. The best coaches in the world are highly intelligent, and they are extremely knowledgeable. And now every ounce of that knowledge built on a better foundation, and you have a game changer. Again, thanks for watching.